have any volunteers of who wants to go first?
I will. I don't mind. I'm I'm good. If
Yeah.
anybody
You
else
can
wants to,
go first if you
I'll
want, Joe.
jump on. Okay.
Go ahead.
So yeah. So my story, and got my notes here. So, um, growing up, I grew up and was brought up in a broken family. Traditional mom and dad together wasn't a thing in my family, and mostly on my dad's side of the family was religion pushed more. Mom's side was not really. So I had at a young age gone to church. It was a non-denominational church, and then didn't know where that was going to lead to. So then, just as quickly as I was attending those churches, when I got to like my real young teen years, I was with a Lutheran church, did the whole communion and baptism and all that, and it always felt very weird to me as a child, thinking, how are there if there's one God, how is there so many different religions and so many different ways to get to him? So it was always very confusing to me, and I don't consider myself really at any point being overtly a religious. I just knew things that I was taught and things that we're supposed to do. You go to church, you, you learn about Jesus and you get saved and all that nonsense. Um so that was always something that I thought about, and I didn't always make the focal point of my life because at that time it wasn't the most important thing to me. School, sports, girls, all the things that we like to look for when we're at a younger age. Those were my priorities, and um, one of the things that was difficult being fr- brought up in a broken family is, there was a lot of drug and alcohol abuse. Both my parents were alcoholics. Um, I was around a lot of people that were on drugs at a very young age. So it was something that it just seemed like there was a lot of conflicting morals when it came to what I'm being taught from one side of the family to the other, and how does that all work in coming to find a relationship with God. So um, I was a little bit confused on that end. I did, focus mostly in my teens. Everything was school sports, and that I think led to, thankfully I never got involved in any sort of drug use, but it kept me at least on a better path than I could have been. So I go into my senior year of high school, and there had been a time where I moved away from New York. I lived in pretty much the same square mile for 17 years of my life. Went out to Arizona for my senior year and first year of college. And at that time, I was learning to become a young adult, and I lived on my own or not with family for the first time in my life. And one of the things that I felt that was missing, because I was going through so much, uh, I was trying to learn to become an adult on my own without having really been taught how to be an adult, um, was to find a church. And I didn't know nearly as many people as I did in the small neighborhood I grew up in. So I'm bouncing from church to church, and I'm looking, and um, I end up moving back home. And so I was in my early 20s, and there was a family member of mine who got a group of us together and introduced the name Yahweh to us. And I was like, huh, okay, this is different. I've never heard of this. So what I came to realize is I was just being introduced to another form of Judaism slash Christianity. It was labeled as messianic. It was labeled as, um, you know, listen to the rabbis, but there's still some Christian roots in it. And then once again, there was more confusion, but the name stuck to me because I'm like, growing up, it was just God, you know, that's the title, that's his title. But when you hear somebody's name, then things start to become a little bit more personal. And so I ran with that for a few years. And I even remember my first Passover was done with the Haggadah and the plates and everything. That was just a very rabbinical celebration. And so I remember after the first Passover that I observed, I'm like, if this is it, I don't know. I'm lost because this is not what I anticipated there being a relationship with Yad, and this is how Passover is observed. So it just never stuck with me. Um, but I wanted to find because it felt like it was just scratching the surface, and I ended up reaching out to another family member of mine who is somebody that I haven't seen since I was a baby. Um, it's Robert Cristiano. He's my uncle. He's all over Facebook and on the site and trying to get more technologically adept to what he can do on the site. But he's the person in my life that introduced me to the name Yahowah, and it was through everything that Craig was doing at that time. Um, it was Shattering Myths, Blog Talk Radio, um, the Bless Yahweh site. That was my first introduction to it, and it was things were starting to make more sense. So what I had previously learned, uh, which thankfully didn't really go too deep, um, but it seemed like, okay, I have some sort of a foundation to build off of, but now this is making sense. And um, my uncle Bob and I and my immediate family up here, we would every week we'd hop on Skype. We'd have couple hour long Skype sessions talking and just getting into the Torah, and then we would talk on occasion. I'd say at least once a week, even outside of the Skype sessions. And he's been kind of like my rock, my mentor in all of this, to phrase it that way. But he is the one who pointed me to Craig's work, learning about Yahowah, and we we got to a point where a lot of the family, and I know this was something that JB had brought up on the last family hour, talking about during the harvest, there's going to be so few that no one's really going to pay attention to. But in my family, there have been a lot of family members who have been introduced to Yahowah, and what they've done with the information is, most of them just in one ear out the other. Some have continued down the more rabbinic path, but I thought that was interesting that that was brought up because, yeah, there are going to be people, and I can speak specifically for my family, that know enough just from conversation and being around that, when the harvest happens, if we're nowhere to be found, they know enough of, where we are. So, um, with all of that being said, to this day, my uncle Bob and I and Sarah, his wife, my aunt, we talk on a weekly basis. It's something that continues, and it's actually ironic because Mark, who I guess through marriage we would technically be related, I just started talking to him not too long ago either. So it's all very cool. I feel fortunate that I do have, blood family who are also covenant family, but it's pretty incredible how all of this has kind of played itself out. And as far as where I'm at now, I mean, I will say you know, probably since my mid 20s is when this journey started, but I would probably go up to maybe a couple years ago where the aha moment was regarding Dode, because that just tied the whole story and made things make sense. And so, I'd like to say I've been Covenant for 10 plus years, but as far as really understanding, um, I would say I'm just a few years of really starting to understand and put the pieces together. And now, with the luminaries and that prophecy, I feel like I'm starting over again, even though we're not. We're just building on knowledge we already have, and these new insights help to create the connections and the understanding. So I would say not too long ago was my aha moment, and I knew there was a reason that for the years leading up to that I stayed on this path, because all of us who are hungry and have the want to learn and to do this, um, for those that stuck around, we finally got, I think, the understanding, the missing piece of the puzzle almost. So, um, that's my story. That's kind of how I came to know Yah, and I'm happy to be able to, contribute. And I love that this is a team effort. I know, John, immediately after I had made the post on the site, reached out and was like, dude, this is such a good idea. So I don't, nobody seems to take it this way, which I'm glad. This isn't my show or John's show. That we're doing this all together as a collaborative team effort, because we're leaving a contribution to the family that is, I'm hoping, is going to be very important to trying to reach out to the younger people and say, hey, look, if you guys can just get some focus and get some clarity, and if you have some interest, there's a few young bucks here that, we might be considered weird or whatever, but this is life changing, and there's nowhere else I'd rather be.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is
Thank you.
awesome, Joe. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
I think a lot of young people, I mean, a lot of people, they view God as this religious God, and that's why a lot of people I know, at least, are atheists, because they don't want to believe in that God, right? Which is like, yeah, like I don't, me either. Like that's not God, right? So
Yeah, and just to kind of expand on that, um, not that I know everybody, I'm definitely on the path of I want to get to know everybody who's in the Covenant family, because we're all we got right now, and forever. So I want to get to know everybody, but I think it does seem like a lot of people have had a broken family at one point or the other. And I know for me, when learning how family oriented the relationship that we have with Yahweh is, him as our heavenly father, not just God, but it's the family aspect too that I know I can say personally has had another type of effect, because you know it's having a mom and a dad together and having that normal family upbringing was something that I know I always longed for but never had. And it's like, all right, well, we know the story now. We've got a family in the Covenant family. So I think it's really cool once you get that concept of God and servant, get that religious crap out, and it's beautiful.
of it, yeah, because that's the thing. That's the beauty of Yah's Torah, right? Is that I think of forever, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I get that family. Like that's and you're not fighting about worthless crap, right? It's
Yeah.
all it's all to our benefit, right? And that's what a parent's supposed to do, is teach you and guide you and then lift you up, and also just you're gonna fall, and it's your life, right?
Hmm.
And then some of us are very lucky to have great parents, and then some of us aren't, and yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
cool. Who's next?
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
I mean, I'll take the stage. Thanks, Joe, for getting it started off. I was like, you know, you reached out, and thank you, because it takes that little bit, right? The more you go on that site, it's great to like, oh yeah, okay, like I can do that too. You're not so intimidated a little bit, because you have to like realize that we're all in the same, we see the same kind of, thing. So thank you.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I'm Sena, and as Kevin has said, I was kind of born into this. I never thought about it like that, and I've just been thinking about it. And in a way, yes, in a way, not. And I'm very lucky as well to just have always known Yahweh's name. I was about 6 or 7 years old when we left the church. I remember going to church maybe a couple times. All I really, remember is playing on the playground. But I wanted to be like the adults, like they were talking to God. Like I was like, heck yeah, I want to talk with him. Um, and my grandmother, she told my parents about Yahweh. She's been looking for Yah her whole entire life, and so when she heard Blog Talk Radio, or I don't know exactly which one, Prophet of Doom, she heard the name Yahweh and was just like, whoa, like who's that? So when she learned a little bit, told them, they had questions. They were like, what? They also had a lot of questions about the church already, though, that I can remember. And so when they went to the priest, which was their friend, or was our friend, um, they couldn't answer, and we were just we're like, okay, like we're leaving this because this is ridiculous. And again, I don't remember the exact wording, other than it was on the lines of, you're being lied to, or like they know and they're being, you just gotta have faith. And my parents weren't about that. They're smart. So I grew up with a stepfather and my mom, my two older brothers, and my father was never in the picture until I was about 5. I'd Skype him. I didn't really know him. I've recently just met him in the last couple of years. And so my stepfather, he raised me with my mom. And I mean, you could say it's a broken family, but not really. Like I had a great childhood. My mom, that she's a great exemplar of who she's my example of who Yah is, because it's just everything from support, and this is for you, and it's about you. um, it's about us, right? And so being my two brothers, myself and my mom, because there's some shifts in there in the world and in life, as there is. We were growing up, and we shut out all of religion. um, on Halloween, we'd turn off the light, we wouldn't answer the door, we would stay inside. Sometimes, yeah, it was like, how do we navigate this? This was back in like 2000, and I believe 9, 10. And so I've had instances where I didn't understand. We would listen on this Sabbath, we'd do the Mikre when we didn't know it was Shag Matzah, but we would still learning, go up to my grandma's. And I had that urge to know. I always knew, like, there was something always in me that I knew. So I didn't really have that struggle of like, of course I've questioned, but I haven't questioned it, because it was just it was right. Everything around me that I saw, uh, it was I was kind of baffled by it. We weren't that political either, or my parents kind of kept that to themselves. It was a more Republican Christian, kind of eye, and so anyway, my whole other side of the family is Christian, and we were shunned out. Like we were told, we walked away from God, and we that was also difficult. We didn't really see them ever. It would be like maybe a couple times after they did their Thanksgiving prayer stuff. We'd go at night and stay over and try and be with them. It just got harder, honestly, to keep going because they're definitely not mentally there. um, and it would all be, bless this, and I'm so blessed, and this God, like, this is why, because God and Jesus. I'm like, oh, okay, like, I'm just trying to have a conversation with you. Anyway, I'm growing up. I'm 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Um, and I have this whole view of the world already. I'm counting down since I was young on my fingers how many years left. And I just every year I kind of remind myself of that time. And I just remember trying to read. I had a lot of difficulties um, younger. I didn't understand why my friends couldn't come with me. That's a big thing. It was just like it really got to me, and it's getting to me now because I've just been reminiscing, about like my partner and just knowing what I have to do and what I want to do, and that I know it's right. And the more you learn, the more you grow, and that doesn't give there's still emotion towards it. So I would have a lot of fits when I was younger. I was so excited celebrating, and then there was just like, oh, my mom and my dad, they've already lived their lives. My grandmas, they've already lived their lives. They're like in 60, 70, 80, and I'm just like growing, and I'm still trying to live my life. And here I know some really heavy truth, and that was a huge thing navigating it. I mean, so I've always known it was when I finally was able to understand, and that took a lot of my life. I've fallen. I've always thought about it every day. I mean, it didn't go away. I didn't want it to go away. It was just like in everything that I did. Okay, someone invited me to a Halloween party. Okay, like no, I have to tell them, or someone saying Happy Christmas. I'm like, I don't celebrate, but yeah, thanks. Like, have a good one. And yeah, I have work. I'll come have dinner, maybe like, and sometimes yeah, I did sometimes, and I'd walk in and just. It was always in my head, in my heart, that I knew that I was like, this is just stupid. And I would, anytime I'd go in a church for a funeral or something, it was just, I was I always knew that this was crap and this was ridiculous and it didn't make sense. And I try to disrespect it, and I would disrespect it because how can you not when you know something? You're just like, it's always been gross. So now I'm 17, 16, 17. How do you go through? You have first relationships. I'm like, I don't celebrate Christmas. Um, but I'm here and I'll stay up in the room while you're down there, and and then you're just kind of sitting there, and then you get invited downstairs, like, okay. And it's yeah, you got to navigate like what is that was really big for me of what's right and what's wrong, and if my head's there, can I be there or no, like, and I had to really learn that, and I'm still learning that. So when I was 17, my mom died. She was diagnosed when I was 12. And the first thing that the first thought was, of course, like, oh, she's gonna die. And then second was, who's gonna teach me about Yah? That it really did put a pin in my head. Like, I know what's important. and I'm still learning. I need my mom. So, she had to leave for a little bit, and I'm in a family, and, of course, my mom's told them, like, I don't celebrate Christmas, and blah, blah, and, they would talk to me and be like, so you don't celebrate, but, like, can I still give you gifts? I'm like, well, like, no, but, like, if you want to, like, like, okay, I'm 12, 13 years old. What am I supposed to say? How dare you? It's, I, and so, I mean, I was one of those kids that would share when I was young, and we'd get shy. I'd get shied away. I'd never see them again because I told them about Yah. So um, I'd stick it to like my brother's friends also. But as you grow, you kind of get in your head a bit, and you're just like, um, no, and what am I supposed to do about this? And so then, yeah, fast forward to when I'm 17, because I was diagnosed with I almost died as well when I was just about to turn 15. Um, and that's, I was on a lot of medication that just messed me up, my high emotions, all this stuff. Um, I'm very glad that I didn't abuse any of these because I mean, I don't like them. So it's one of those that I'm very glad that I I don't know, I just had something in me, I guess. Anyway, so my mom dies, and now it's, I am reminiscing to the moments when I was about 15, like, okay, she's going to die. And it wasn't because y'all, decided this. I would have conversations with my grandma too about it, though. I'd be like, this is my test. Like, I couldn't just have her do this for me. Like, I need to step up. And it scared me because I was like, "Oh, am I do," I had a hard time reading, and I knew that was like, you have to read, like, and I just couldn't comprehend it. And as much as I tried, and so I would listen, I would listen to the blog talk radios when I just it flips like, hey, like, it's been a couple weeks, so it's been a month, you need to like lock in again, and that kept happening throughout my adulthood. Of, hey, like, you think about y'all every day, you're not acting on it. So, like, listen, so I'd be at work, come up on the floor, I'd try and listen as much as I could. It was really hard. I needed to be visual, would, need to go back, and so now I'm about 18, 19, and it's always there. Again, hard to read. But now like, I'm getting to that point where, oh, there's videos, great, and I would try and that helped me a lot when I think maybe I was like 20, 19, 20, can't remember, but that was just huge for me because I was like, I was able to actually engage myself, and it wasn't until the last, yeah, 2 years I finally like braided myself, like, without my grandma or my parents, my own Passover, and matzah and bikurim, so chag matzah, and that's, I've had some hits with my grandma, like, I'm glad for it, and also I needed to learn myself, um, that, like, hey, if you don't understand, you can't do this, and I'm like, but like, I know, I like, right, and it would be frustrating because I knew. So when everything came out about Dode, I mean, that, because I asked Craig, I emailed him in 21, I believe, about who is Yasha? Is that, why didn't ask God to die for me? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, literally, like, I'd have a big issue with that. I'm like, I didn't ask God to die for me. Like, right? You being a naive little kid throughout the years, not understanding, that now it wasn't a part of Yah in a Avatar, and that it's Dode, and I was like, that made so much sense to me, right? It's still questions about, like, who's Adam? Was Adam with you? Is Chawa with you? Like, what's going? Of course, we learned that out soon later, and that, I mean, again, struck me like a pin. So when I celebrated my first Chag Matzah, and that was like the first year, I believe, that we all knew that it was Chag Matzah, and not, it wasn't all about Passover. It was about Dode, taking our guilt into Sheol. And so, I would eat my meals. I would listen to Craig, write stuff down, like I had been. And um, that's when like the learning finally kicked in for me, because I was doing it myself and I wasn't just relying on others. And I would, I that's when I reached out to Leia when they were talking about the music group, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like wait, I want to be a part of this. This is phenomenal. This is like, I had something in me that was just like, okay, I need to do this. I want to do this. Let's go. Like, you know, and I, I was living in different homes. When my mom passed, I was with friends, and I've been around other people's houses, and I had just gotten back from London. So I was living in my friend's closet. So, it was a little difficult with just my iPad to do those music videos. I think I did one, and then it was just with my friend's mom, like, what are you doing? Like, are you gonna work? Like, are you need to do something? And I had to, do I go back to Europe? My, my relationship with my stepdad there got lost a bit, and misunderstandings of I left there because I knew that that we were gonna be taken soon. I was like, what's the point of starting an entire new life? I'm gonna be with my family, my friends, the people that I've been with. I'm, my home. And it was hard. Family is huge for me in the sense of it's a lot of chosen family. There's a lot of people around me, um, and I mean, I was just I'm such a person, like a people person. I'm an empath, and so I strive with people around me. So it was hard to just take that, even though I thought I had to do that to know Yah, and I thought I had to do that because I needed help, and I didn't know how to live life on my own, financial troubles and my illness. So, um, so when I came back, and I'm starting to work, and uh, I got lost there for a bit there. I didn't, I wasn't staying up on my grind. And then I came to realization, of course, when like the feast days come back, they're my reminder too, like, hey, it's coming up. When is it? Mark it on my calendars, or you're talking to family members. And um so that I think that was about 2 years ago. And I was like, Sena, you gotta read. Like, I had a kind of mental breakdown there. I was like, well, I'm gonna be there. Like, I know what's right. And now it's my time. She told me, you gotta change your mindset. Because for a while there, I would just break down, and it was hard for me to be productive because I would let my emotions really get to me about it. I mean, the world's gonna end. I mean, for us, like, again, like that's how you think of it, and it's not that like your life's just beginning, but that's just how it feels because you're in this reality. So I had to kick in there some. I had to kick my booty and put another mindset there. Like, hey, there's this life, and there's a reality, and this is what's right, and don't let this keep you from this, right? Um, and so I go away for a little bit. I go to Spain for 3 months last year, and I bring my Dead Sea Scroll Bible. I bring, I think, Introduction to God, um, and of course I have a hard time. Like, there's so much. I'm like, what do I read? What do I do? So all I knew was, I know the feast days. I'm gonna go on my computer and I'm gonna read, because Tarua and Sukkah are coming up. I'm gonna ask for those days off of school, going, and it's all I could do. And so here I am learning more and more. And because again, I've had moments. I've had a lot of moments. I've just wasted. Like, I was sitting there knowing, and I'm not doing anything about it. And I kept reading that in Tarua and Sukkah and Yom Kippurim. Like, I literally, it was, sorry, yeah, no, it was Tarua, and then it was Yom Kippurim and Sukkah that were there when I was gone, and it was like it was don't delay because you will be left behind, and that I mean it sinks you a bit because it's like I had been. Like I literally was like, okay, I'm gonna start this year. Okay, I'm gonna start next year. I'm gonna read right. I'm gonna get it together, and it wouldn't come. Um, it finally did once I got home, and I I had to fix some of my life because again relationships and this and that and your friends and you had just left my I just left my life behind and so anyway when I got home and I um I started reading. I got all the books. So like I just need to get the books. They just need to be here. My girlfriend and I we moved in together. She had their first Christmas. I stayed home. I was watching the dog. Of course, I had some moments of like, well, I know what's right and know what's right. Can I go though? And that's the string. It's like I know, and I don't want to be there for that, but I want to be around the family, right? It's just like these strings, and you're just like, no. It's like no. You gotta. There's some point where right, you gotta remember. Um. So anyway, we move into our first apartment, and I'm getting all the books. I'm going to the library now, and I'm actually reading, and I'm actually comprehending it. The songs help. The listening on the Shabbat, and now on the vlog and the blogs. I mean, all of it combined, it just really it digs in. But yeah, it wasn't until like literally this year, last year, this year, that I really, I took that book. I finally got the book. Like I'd been reading the same kind of thing over the years, and I would always lose my place, and I'd just get frustrated with myself. And so I was like, okay, I need my highlighters. I need this so I don't get lost, and that's it. And so I'm like, okay, no distractions. Let's go to the library. 3 hours, get like maybe 20 pages in, and I'm like, oh, I'm highlighting everything, and everything's so important, and this and that, and and it's just like so mind blowing. And here I am with my girlfriend. I'm like, hey, this is so cool. Like, you want to hear it, and then she'll look it up, and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, no, let's see, I'll be able to answer that. I'm learning it. I'm learning it, and then I'll learn it in the next couple of days, or it'll come out on Craig will say it, and you're just like, okay, so like. By the way, it's kind of like she's really helping me because I'm able to tell her and she has supported me. I mean, again, with the relationships, it was one of those things where it's like, do you mention it? Yeah, you mention it, but you can't just like full on like, hey, like, by the way, like, where the world's gonna end. Like, no, and I had some people who didn't shoot, like, couldn't be with me because of it, or I wasn't able to share it because it was just, wasn't like that at 18 years old. They don't have that. They don't have that in them. It's not, they have the world, they have politics. They have politics and religion, and politics for a lot of young people are like the biggest thing because they don't believe in God, because they don't like religion. Um, so anyway, I'm here. I've finally started to understand and being able to decarbonalize more of my emotions into understanding and knowing and just like, hey, it is what it is. My brothers, I've alone there for a while. My brothers just kind of were like, I'm living my life. Like I have this to do and I have this to do. And I was always like, I can't do that because I need to focus on this. And it'd always be like that too. I wouldn't do certain things like get a job, like a certain job or that because I'm like, I need to focus on this. And I kept telling myself that. And I finally have just started to do it because it was a lot of waiting and delaying. And so I needed to wake up once I got to here, and then I was like, here, I was like, I need I need to lock in here now. It's not this, it's again, it never strayed away from me. Like it was always here, and it's now it's my responsibility to if I know this and I want this, then I got to do it myself. So now I'm here.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
I kind of
Thank
wish I
you.
went before you because like there's so much overlap that I'm like, oh man, by the time David and I go, everybody's gonna kind of have said like so many similar things that it just sound like we're repeating each other.
No, but
But
that's what it's about, right? It's about
it's
like
good.
being
It's relatable. Everybody's relatable. Like I listened
Yeah.
to Matt and Shannon's show, and I listened to Mark's show, and it's just everything they're talking about is very relatable. It's like conversations I've had with myself, just like sitting on my porch having smoking a cigarette, and Don will be sitting next to me, and I'll be just thinking out loud like I do because that's kind of my way of processing things, and yeah, it's just it's uncanny how relatable everybody is.
Mm-hmm.
it's
I
Yeah.
was actually telling one of my friends, who's also Covenant, I was like, we were kind of joking around. I was like, if you were kind of in like more of a dystopian future type of thing, and it was like people were testing to see who was Covenant to like kill us, basically. I think it'd be very easy to tell us apart from other people if you just ask us enough questions or just observe us, because like we all have very similar like I don't know like thought processes and how we like do things just because of what we know is good and what's not and stuff like that. So I think it'd be easy for us to also see each other. It's like, oh yeah, that's definitely not someone who's a Christian or not someone who's religious or whatever. So I just thought that was funny. But yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. How did you? How did it? Because it's interesting because you knew it from such a young age. You were kind of oriented in the right direction. How? I know you kind of touched on it a bit, but how do you find that kind of helped shape your kind of like tenacity, having to deal with people your age that kind of had no idea what you were talking about, and you kind of having um, what it's kind of like more of like a immature standpoint, obviously, because we're young. But like this idea of having to like kind of defend yourself, especially when you're explaining it to other people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't. It's like okay. So when I was younger, right, like 11 and that age, I just didn't care what someone said about it. I knew, right? It was like, well, I know this. Just wait till 2026. You know what I mean? Like literally, and they'd fight with you and think you're crazy. I'm like, just wait, and because again, I had no problem sharing, yada yada with them. I had no problem. Like I go ahead, try and prove that this is wrong because it's not. And so I wouldn't, bring it up with people as much. It would be like more of if they asked, like, what are you doing for your birthday, whatever. I'm like, I don't celebrate my birthday. And they'd be like, what? And they'd be like, yeah, it's just like not what I know. Like pagan, like, and I guess it depended also who was asking me. Because either I'm like, they don't care. And so middle schoolish, it'd be like my close friends would be like, "You don't believe in God, yeah?" And I was like, "What? Yeah, no, I do." And they're like, "What, you do?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not religious, and I'm not political." Okay, you got to make it really clear because they don't understand. And they'll keep calling it religion too, and you're like, "It's not religion," because they don't know anything else. And so they'd be interested, and I'd tell them about the feast days, and be like, okay, like and I haven't really been ridiculed for it until this past year, like the last couple years, and not really ridiculed. More of I came back from London, people are confused, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna be here, and let the emotion get in it, and not being able to really state my clear, like, hey, by the way, I'm still alive, it's just not my body. And there's the cult thing, because when you're gonna die. So I'm like, whoa, I've never heard that. And they think you're crazy, like they actually, like, they don't say it to your face, but it gets around in friend groups there. I'm still learning right now how some people look at me. they see they see the menorah, or I have my menorah and books out, right? And it gets more attention. They're like, oh, like, what's that? And I'll explain. Or, yeah, my tattoo, it's Hebrew and it's for my mom. And they'll be like, what's that? And I'll be like, well, my mom and I, we study the Torah, and it's for that, right? Like, oh, okay. And so yeah, when especially with the the Palestinian and the Israel thing, they're it helps me actually. They kind of go off about it, and I'm able to be like, hey, our religion is bad and politics are bad, and that's what's going on, right? And some will be like, no, it's not a religious war. They're trying to kill everybody, and it's cultural cleansing, and it's sometimes you just gotta shut up and just not interact with that, because that they're just dumbfounded, like they have no idea what's going on. But yeah, a lot of people there didn't know I believed in God or knew. I always am like, oh, I don't believe I know, but and they're like, and especially today, people don't like confrontation, and that's something that I've really had to work on because I'm a big people pleaser, and so when someone brings it up now, especially with everything going on in the world, I've been able, honestly, social media has really helped me being a little more out there. I'll just post about what's going on in Israel and more about Yahud. Like, people know that I am, for Jews here, and and I'm like, keep on following me, keep it, because I'm like, so I've grown more of that mentality aspect of it for sure, especially now, the more I've learned, because when I knew like the Mikre, and I knew a lot, like parts of it and here and there, and I knew the idea of it, and I would tell my friends about Dode. Uh, they'd either look into Craig, and looking into Craig in the sense of they'd read his little bio thing there, and that was it. And then it's like you can't get anything from it's like you didn't actually look into it, and but so yeah, so sometimes, most of the time, I don't bother. um I've talking with Mariah and Russell has really helped also. I've told my friends, like, hey, I don't want no birthday presents, and they keep doing it. And we talked a little bit about that, and I've had to put my foot down, and I texted them, and I was like, hey, by the way, just be like, I know you love me, I know you care, but this is not caring for me. And again, if you have people that respect you enough, they will stick with you. And a lot of the time, it'll just be emotionally immature drama people that have no, they don't even know this is happening. They're so in their own world that they just like aren't not interested. They think it's a cult, and they don't care, and you're just like, okay, like, that's fine, right? So I
No,
hope
I
that
like that.
answers a little
That's a
bit.
good, well-rounded answer. It kind of hits all the different angles of that question. That's good.
It's hard shutting up sometimes.
No,
but I love keep learning, because then I'm like, that, like Dr. Jeff said, that's my ammo, right? And
Mhm.
so
No, that's great.
thank you for the question.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else have any more questions they'd like to ask?
Yeah, I
If
thought
we
I would have
wanna,
questions, but you kind of covered everything. So
Yeah, you nailed it.
very good
It,
at going
the more
all the
we
way
get
around
into
it.
this, yeah, like the more we have our segments and stuff, I'm gonna have more for you. You know what I mean? It's gonna be
yeah,
like,
we'll
For
explore
sure.
more.
yeah, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
you start talking about stuff, and like, yeah. So don't worry.
Oh, it keeps going and going, and then sometimes, yeah, I know. I mean, I remember when I used to share this when I was just a very immature uh, seed, not mature grain by any means, and
No.
I wanted to share this with everybody, and it was like
Oh,
half the time it was no response, half the time it was some sarcastic remark, or it just never seemed to really go anywhere with it. But when you find that one person and it's like, oh, they have a good attitude about it, or they ask a question that is like you can tell when someone's BSing you or if somebody's got a genuine question about it.
yeah.
And it's like when that happens, all of a sudden you see like the room lights up and you're like, "Oh, all right, we can actually have a conversation about this." And it's just funny because I know what you mean. Once you get going on a topic, it just keeps coming out, and it's funny.
It is.
Yeah, it's very relatable. Oh man, that's a good clip too. We'll definitely include that. Um, it makes me think about all the people that I've encountered over time and shared this with. Because like same thing, Joe. Like when I was pretty young and just learning about this, and I didn't know. I'm trying to come up with a turn of phrase there that we can keep in without bleeping. But anyways, when I was still trying to figure my stuff out, essentially, like I remember going off the handle a little bit and talking to certain people, and then I'm like halfway through the conversation, and then I'm like, wait a second here, maybe I don't actually have the full picture. Like I'm just kind of getting in the door. So it's like, there was definitely a while where I was like, I just need to kind of not say anything about this until I kind of have all my ducks in a row. Because if I'm gonna say something, I definitely don't want to misrepresent it. You know what I mean? Like, I think I had
Yeah.
a conversation with a group of people I used to go to school with, and the one girl was like, "Oh, you're definitely part of a cult." I'm like, "Definitely not part of a cult," but I would kind of explain the basis of why not. But it's at the same time, like I didn't necessarily have all the ammunition to really be compelling. You know what I mean? I also
Yeah.
realized like that wasn't even necessarily the point back then. The point back then really should have been just kind of like the self refinement. You know what I mean? And if
Mhm.
anything, I feel like it kind of all of our self refinement collectively has kind of led to this, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting in that regard that we've kind of went from talking to strangers and friends and family to we're going to be doing the vast communication just with each other from now on.
Yeah. It's really cool. I think for me, I played baseball my whole life growing up, played in college, tried to do a college coaching career in baseball, and it was always like sometimes I would think about when I'm coaching kids or college kids or whatever age group, but it's like the more I coach, because coaching is like a form of teaching, the more I would do it, the more I would almost teach myself again, or revisit it and refine my tools. And I find it to be the same thing too with sharing Yah with somebody, because like for a lot of the time with my uncle, I mean, he's in his 70s, I'm in my 30s, so you know there's always going to be that generational gap when it comes to just how we can sometimes relate. So having, you know, everybody within about 5-10 years of each other and still being able to have these types of conversations, it's I feel like we are sharpening each other to a degree. You know, you might pick something up from what David says, or oh, I like the way that you said that. I can kind of connect those dots. So I think it's cool hearing it from different aged people and their experiences.
Yeah. And it's like when I asked you guys the other day, it's nice to have those people that you can kind of just like gain more information, or because something, I don't know if you have this feeling over you sometimes, but you think a lot more than people would, especially because you're like, okay, like it's not more like I don't want to mess up. It's more like, am I being am I being reasonable here? Do I have reasoning? It was like about the tattoos, or like I was like, nah, like so always something I was like, when I was like not really covenant in that time being, and I kind of just did what I wanted to do. And then I've been able to be more thoughtful about it when I'm back reading and stuff, because I'm just like, okay, that's a normal custom of what, like, with religious people, and but they just like are like that, it's not, it's laws or whatever. And I'm like, I know Yah doesn't have laws, but he has, hey, take the information and then do what you will and use your mind about it, right? So, I had this feeling of like, so I was sitting there and I was like, okay, I don't want one, but these people keep pressuring me, and I'm like, okay, but Yah doesn't care. It's my body. It's not my soul. Like, and that kind of, I was like, okay, like kind of relief. And then I was getting closer, and I was like, you're just sitting there, and they're getting it done, and I was just like, now I'm sweating profusely. I was just like, I don't think so. Like, you really like it, you're just like, oh, let me. So I go on my phone, I go to yada yada, and I put tattoos in, and I'm just trying to read anything that I can to kind of get more of an understanding, to make sure I'm not, just being thoughtful about it, right? Not like, oh, I was not gonna say we're not covenant because of it. But if we're not like, no, if we're not learning and growing from it, right? And so, yeah, like, I sent you guys. I was like, hi, hey, like, do you guys know something that I don't? And I know this is a thing, and just when Yah, or God in general, there's some specific things, and so I just got to reading, and I was like, okay, okay, I understand. Like, literally, tattoos were there to mask someone's, like, they're to cover someone, and so they could be below a guy, like a man in Islam, right? It was like slavery. And it was, of course, I have a lot to still learn, but it went into piercings, and it went into jewelry, and it went into purses, and I'm like, okay, there's, and it's using the Torah in your life. And I've done that throughout my life, and I've also not. And then I would do it again because I'm like, no, like, you're letting the world get to you. And then that was something that I was like, okay, I'm in this, and I'm doing this, and I want this, and I don't want to not have that understanding and just be stupid about my words. It's like, even when I'm sharing this with my girlfriend or someone else, I really try and watch my ego. I really try and do those certain things because I don't want to be correct because I think I am. No, I want to be right and correct because I know I am, because I've learned it. So, having this community and being able to not feel bad about it, like, of course, I've just been like, like, let me, no, like, I'm not gonna share, that because I know it's wrong. No, it's just more of, okay, I've done this. Now let me use it in my environments. And when I decided not to, I was like, okay, I feel so much better because I was like, I didn't want it, but then I had let that get to me. I was like, okay, okay, and then I was like sweating profusely in these situations when you're just like, and I mean that's I so yeah.
It's applying what you learn to your life,
Yeah,
engaging upon
being
it.
thoughtful about it for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. An interesting aside is that culturally, this idea of like clothing and tattoos and jewelry, and its connection to servitude, like, even goes even further, like modern today. Like, for instance, women's shirts, like blouses, have the buttons on the left hand side,
Right.
and now I could be wrong. I'd have to double check this, but essentially, what I understand is that's because the um, predominantly, like, wealthy women would be dressed by their servants, and right-handed servants would have the buttons on the opposite side to dress.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's like, it goes even into like clothing manufacturing today, and essentially that's the main reason why men's and women's shirts are different, for example. So it's just like stuff like that, even the most like subtle kind of influences we don't even necessarily recognize.
hmm
Yeah, it's all
Well,
it's
like,
I learned something
obviously
new
left
today.
and right buttons isn't necessarily like, good versus evil, but it's like, so like, this is an example of like how the sort of structures that we have kind of permeated
yeah.
culture.
hmm
And that's lost too, because a lot of the popularity, like, I'll mention, what I just learned, I was like mentioned it, and I was like, yeah, this is why, and they're like, oh, well, it looks cool, and I'm gonna right, you're like, okay, that's you can, and so, but it's like now I'm like, okay, maybe back off a little bit, and it's exactly it's once you have that mindset too of like you're able to see the world how it is and not deny it or like, oh, that sucks so bad, so I'm just gonna forget about it because you can live in this all dilly dilly land and it's great there, but you're not like growing.
So yeah, I'm John. It kind of starts when I was around 16 for me. I was kicked out of my family home, and I ended up moving in with my girlfriend and her family. And at that point, I was pretty politically minded. I wasn't a religious person, and being in this kind of environment where I wasn't in my family home gave me an opportunity to have all of this intellectual freedom. I could watch whatever I wanted. I could read whatever I wanted. I could essentially do anything as long as I didn't burn the house down. And I was very left leaning when I was in high school, and I was part of this enrichment program. And any sort of academic enrichment program is going to have some sort of political bias to it, and that was definitely no exception. And coming out of that, I started spending some time in some of the more infamous places on the internet, namely 4chan, and it was I went the opposite way from the left wing. I instead started swinging all the way to the other side, and that wasn't good either. And I kind of saw what I was doing. I was like, this is really really horseshoe of me. And one day I'm on that website and I stumble upon a post, and it's an excerpt of the first volume of Yahowah. It's the Or Light chapter, talking about cosmic microwave background radiation and the theory of relativity. And it was the most amazing thing that I had ever read at that point in time. And it ensnared me immediately. It was like my introduction was my eureka moment in a way, because it was the coolest thing in the world to me. It was everything I had been looking for. You know what I mean? I was a political agnostic, where I was like, okay, maybe God exists, but he doesn't want anything to do with me. You know, and I fell into that rabbit hole, and it just kind of kept going from there. And it's interesting. I guess I'll tell this little aside just because it's entertaining. Is that the individual who had made that thread, I had gotten his email and started to communicate with him for a little bit, and he introduced me to the Bless Yahweh website, where I began listening to the Shattering Myths archives and Blog Talk Radio archives, and reading some of the additional pages and resources that were on there before I was starting to kind of climb into an introduction to God. And this guy had some interesting ideas. One of them was that he was a reincarnated John the Baptist that had come back to serve as one of the two witnesses, and he talked to floating orbs of light. And he and I stopped talking after that, and I haven't heard from him since I had heard that his wife left him. And but anyways, moving on, I kind of started taking my own strides there, because I realized if I was going to figure this out, I definitely wasn't going to be able to necessarily rely on the person who introduced me to it. And it was interesting being so young with all this information ahead of you and the whole world at your fingertips to exactly, okay, well, what doors are you going to open? What doors are you going to leave shut? How are you going to figure out your place in the world? And it was a very interesting time, and I think I chose correctly for the most part. I've obviously made mistakes along the way. So yeah, that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. And there's definitely been some challenges, like stepping away from all these different family gatherings. I don't see pretty much any of my extended family anymore. I might see them once in a while, but it's kind of rare, and I'm not there for any sort of holiday or anything like that. I just kind of show up when other stuff's going on that's not related to anything. I mean, it's like, you guys are getting together for barbecue, give me a call. But I mean, if you're getting together for a holiday, I'm not going to be there. And so needless to say, I don't get out very much to those kind of functions. And the hardest thing probably that I had to deal with was initially in the first maybe 2-3 years of really starting to study is that, Dawn and I at the time, she didn't quite get on the train when I did, So there was a little bit of trying to figure out what exactly we were going to do because I began kind of prioritizing um, my relationship with Yahowah and learning everything that I could with what time we had. And, I remember first learning about this, and it was probably about 10 years ago because I remember having the thought where I'm like, oh man, am I really going to, you know, sit here for 10 years on this information and not do anything with it? Like, I have to try to learn something. So, and it was a slow grind. You know what I mean? I'm not the best student by any means. I learn pretty well through storytelling more so than I do sitting there and reading a book. I don't know if that's just like a generational thing or ADHD or that's just the way I'm wired, but it is what it is in that regard. Um, but it took some time. It took a lot of time with me talking to Dawn, and I remember the one day she was like, "Oh, I can't do this. You don't want to have Valentine's Day with me. You don't want to have Christmas and Easter and all these wonderful times where we do these things." And I remember, she's sitting on the couch and I kneel down next to her and I grab her hand. And I'm like, Dawn, we don't need those days to do wonderful things together. We're going to make our own days. We don't need a stupid date on the calendar for us to decide that we're going to go and, check out a waterfall or have a picnic, or if I want to buy you a gift or you want to buy me a gift, we can do that anytime we want to. We can make our own days special. And, I must have been pretty persuasive because Dawn and I are still together today. And it was, a couple months after that, I walk into our bedroom and she's laying on the bed on her phone and she has this image of the Dead Sea Scrolls up, and it shows where Yahweh's name is written on that excerpt, and she's like, there it is. She's, it was kind of like her first time really taking the moment to look at it for herself, and it was just it was a really big moment for her and for me to kind of also be able to experience that with her, like to kind of walk in on that. It was really cool. It was a big moment for us. And I've wanted to do something for everyone here for like a long time, and I always wondered what that was. I'm sure Kevin can remember like the first time I called him like 2 years ago, and I was like, Kevin, there's things I want to do. There's things that I think would be really cool. It was either a year or two ago, but I think it was two. And like one of the ideas was getting everybody to like get on video and put down their story and do that. So it's really cool that we're all doing this as a group now.
Yeah.
And like, I talked to him about a couple different things that I thought were decent ideas, and it's cool the way things have evolved since then. But the thing that really kicked my ass into gear was probably the time I almost died at work. That was pretty significant. And it was all my stupidity. I totally could have avoided everything that happened, but I was stressed out. I'm an English guy who knows like maybe 400 words in Spanish, and I've got a crew of 3 Mexican guys that don't speak any English, and I've got to get a rail car lined in like the next 2 days, and my supervisor's gone and my lead hand's gone. It's just me and these guys, and they don't understand what I'm saying, and I'm just trying to get it done without having to strip and reline this rail car. And we have all these quality issues, and I've got to hop back in there and repaint the lower half of the rail car. And I was like, I'm just going to do it quick, and I went in there without a respirator, and I'm just like, I'm gonna spread this out and hop on out, because you have some time, you have fresh air being pumped into the rail car and everything like that. It's not like falling into like a giant pit of acid where you just like vaporize or anything like that. Like these things take a little bit. And I was moving some stuff around and I kicked the paint can and I spilled a bunch of paint on the floor of the rail car. And I was like, oh no, I need to spread this out, because obviously I'm going to ruin the paint if I don't. So I spread it out, and then I got really confused after that. I was definitely under the influence of the Toluene. And my Mexican buddy Joel, he's like, John, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. And then I just face planted. And next thing I remember is I was outside the rail car sitting on a can, and my supervisor, I was really close with him and his son, and I'm sitting on like a 5-gallon pail, and there's a fan blowing in my face, and he's standing next to me, and I look up at him, I'm like, oh, Rick, something happened. And he just looks down at me, and he's like, yeah, something really did happen. It was a crazy experience, you know, and it took me like a couple days to like get my memory back of everything that happened. I had all these crazy freaking dreams while I was unconscious in that rail car, and some of the most random things, man. Like I remember at one point I was conscious and standing at the bottom of the ladder, and I have my phone. I'm trying to talk to my buddy Howell, who came in to grab me. The thing is like it was crazy because I'm just scrolling on my phone looking for my translator app, and one of my supervisors, looks in the rail car, and they're like, "We're rescuing this guy," and he's just standing there on his phone. But I was like, I had no idea what was going on, and there's a million instances. I could talk about that story for like an hour and a half. It's probably pretty entertaining to some people, but you know, I'll expand on that later. We'll talk about my Toluene dreams and the Mexican guy who pulled me out of a rail car. But yeah, that kind of led me to like, hey, you need to do something, man, because like there's not a lot of time. You haven't really done anything worth writing down, you know. So that kind of brings me here today with you guys, and yeah, we're having a good time. So I know that it's all worked out.
That's right. Thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We said
Any
it's a
questions
spirit.
for
Well, more of a comment. Yeah, I'm glad you made it out alive and
that? Yeah, the crazy
you're
thing
functioning.
is that like I got my blood tested and everything because they took me to the hospital after. Is that I had no like permanent organ damage that they could discern, which is good. Like I feel like my brain doesn't work the same after that. I don't know if it's good after uh, hitting that level, but yeah, it was a wild story for sure.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I had a
Wow.
couple explosions when I was working there too.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
It's not
Yeah.
fun almost dying, huh?
Like Michael Bay type stuff?
No, not like cool guys don't make explosions kind of explosions. Like so like one of them is I was in a chrome tank, like a trench. So it's like an
Oh my
8 foot deep
gosh.
trench, and it's like 25 feet long, and they had like a PVC lining, and it was all blistered. There's all this chrome acid, like the size of like footballs, popping out of the wall. And it's like, well, we got to get the acid
Jeez.
out from behind the liner. So, you know, like we cut the bottom of the liner out and drain all the acid down. And I find this big bubble, and I'm pushing on it. It's not draining. And I like look up out of the trench at my supervisor. I'm like, Rick, you know, this one's not draining anywhere. And he goes, push on it. So I start pumping on it. Yeah, it's not going anywhere. He goes, spark test it. We have this like gun with like a coat hanger rod on the end of it, and it puts like 20,000 volts through it. You drag it across a lining to see if it sparks, and if it sparks, it leaks. And as soon as I hit this bubble, the wall exploded. It ripped like a foot wide gash in the wall. I'm covered in acid from like head to toe. It was absolutely crazy.
Oh my
Not like a fire explosion,
Jeez.
but I had it was like when I pumped the bubble, it must have created like hydrogen gas, and that would have exploded. So that was kind of
crazy.
interesting.
Wow. I'm assuming you had to wear like head to toe protection from that. Like, what was the attire like?
I mean, if you couldn't tell from my other story, I kind of shorted out on a little bit of safety gear. That was kind of difficult. I had glasses on.
Okay.
Hey, protect the eyes at least.
Yeah, I protect the eyes. I've gotten like slag and stuff on my eyes doing welding too. Like you have like a needle scaler, and it's like right in your eyeball.
Jeez.
Sometimes I just have a lot of bad luck for stuff like that. Not that I help it by any means, but
Yeah.
yeah, I like to live dangerously.
Yeah, you live on the edge, man. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, great, great story. I can see why that was your moment of, hey, time time to get on the right track here, because
Yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, I don't know if I've ever had a near death experience. Have any of you, either of you had one? I mean, John, we know you have had one. Either of you ever had one?
I've had a
Yeah.
couple.
Well, yeah, Sena, you said with your health, right?
Yeah, my kidneys were failing. So
Oh,
Jeez.
I have a question.
yeah.
So, because like this kind of segues in a circle for both of us, because like my experience, pretty much 95% of the damage was psychological. You know what I mean? Like physically, it didn't actually hurt me. Like my back felt like pretty sore the next day, but like most of the damage was in my head for sure. You dealing with your illness, did you find that it was like a equal mental struggle and a physical struggle? Did you find it was mostly physical, mostly mental?
Yeah, being an athlete especially, and you put on prednisone and steroids, and people feel like, oh, so you got jacked. No, no, it deteriorated my bones, my body blew up, my hormones are outraged. I'm 15 years old, like, you know, so definitely psychological for sure, and physical. I'm still very positive, but I was a very positive person then. And to get in those moments of being kind of alone because I had just moved to also Arizona, just gone there. I was like, get me out of California with all my drama friends. So I was taking in that experience as well. So I was able, having been on those steroids, and not being you after being an athlete for your entire life definitely takes a toll. You've built your body up and you feel good, you look good, and then all of a sudden it's just this huge thing. And I think more so then, but like now it's really like it follows you. So it didn't just, happen and then it's over. It's it follows you. So it followed me physically, and then it also followed me. Like I had to get hip surgery on both my hips last year because I have bone death and then from the steroids. Um,
Nice.
and then mentally, because you're like, I'm an athlete. I'm someone that does some stuff. Like I should be able to work. I mean, I worked for 2 months, and then now I have to have hip surgery, right? So yeah, and then you look at yourself and you're like, I'm not able to hold it up, and you beat yourself down, and it's especially in today's society, right? To make your body like everything. I
Hmm.
definitely did not give a. I think right. I was like, I had friends that had a lot of those troubles, and I was just like, "You're beautiful." Um, I get it now, though. Like I'm able to like look at both sides. So it's yeah, it's been a challenge for sure, both ways.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever been sick like that. I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's interesting, and again, you have to be. It's for everybody. I mean, I've had infusions since I was 14, so needles and I literally just stopped infusions this year because they weren't doing good for me um anymore. But like, you either like, you know, you either say you're the sick kid or yeah, you're like, this is not me. This is just something that's just occurring. Um, I don't know. I saw it a different way. I don't know. I didn't even see it as a part of me. It was just more of what it did to me. And that's the struggle that you got to get through.
Yeah, you didn't let it
Yeah.
define you, but it was a thing that was happening to you.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions for any of my antics or anybody else who's already gone, and then we'll get into David's.
With Dawn, I want to hear her story. I know I will someday. Um, but I understand the like physical evidence of it, right? You can read and you can, and I mean sometimes that's just enough because you're like, whoa, it's right. It's not about having faith. But when I would look up like the Noah's Ark stuff and the Temple Mount or Mount Sinai or Mount Chorb, right? And you're kind of just like looking for the crank, like the crack, the burned edge, and you kind of do your own digging. What was that? Was it? How was that for you? Like when she found out, and she was reading the Dead Sea Scroll Bible or the online,
Yeah.
and saw that.
Um,
Did you have any of that?
like insofar as like my own introduction, and like when I saw something, I was like, oh yeah, this is the thing.
Yeah, like did you
Um,
have any experience before that led you to like also? kind of look into that just as Don was doing that?
It was for me mostly. It was that Or chapter that really got me invested, just because it was just so fascinating to me. And then, of course, reading all the reading the first volume of Yahowah Barashith, where it talks about all of these different things, and going on to Noah's Ark, and some of the other archaeological evidence. I know that there was I don't know if it's ever been like proven as a myth, but like the chariot wheels in the Dead Sea,
Yep,
and
that's
like
also, yeah.
all of these different archaeological things, the pillars that Solomon erected on either side of the crossing, like these sorts of things to me were like, okay, these are very significant archaeological events. Because like if I could have went to university, I would have loved to have been an anthropologist. That would have 110% been my thing, trying to figure out like the past and why things happened the way they did. Like what I mean, like if you could discover the mystery cause or the causes of the Bronze Age collapse, like what I mean, like something like that would have been like that would have been right up my alley if I went to school. And it was these sorts of things that once I encountered them, it was very interesting. It gave a lot of credibility to the material that was there, and encouraged me to kind of look further into it. And then through reading through Introduction to God, which I read through so long ago, definitely would have been a different version than today. It was very interesting, where it was kind of perspective changing. I had a lot of mental habits I had to break. There's a lot of reparenting that comes with the covenant, and yeah, that was kind of the approach that I had ended up taking. It wasn't necessarily one specific thing, but it was like a series of things. Like you kind of build that foundation. You know what I mean? And it builds from there for sure.
Cool.
Yeah. I just gotta say I find it extremely cool, and for those involved, very fortunate to have a partner who is covenant with them. I mean, just look. I mean, you and Dawn, Mariah and Russell, Kirk and Sylvia. Obviously, as a given, we know Craig and Leah. But when it's man and woman, when they're both in it together, that's one thing I'll say from the. I know I mentioned it before, but like from a dating perspective, that's been the hardest thing for me, because number one, I don't know how anybody goes out and dates anymore, because there's so much stuff out there that I don't even want to have a conversation about. So how do you even strike up a conversation with the opposite sex or the same sex, or whatever your preference is? What are you talking about? Like, how do you even go about it? So I've always had, and the more I've listened to, I think over the last 6 months, how important it is, that that we have a partner. We're not better off alone. We're better with that significant other, but at the same time, you know, there has to be a line drawn if that other person is not. And Sena, I know you had mentioned with your partner, sharing and maybe seeing where she leads to her, understanding, and if it's a path she wants to take. But I just always find that fascinating that two people can get on the same page, and it's definitely, when you got maybe 13 months left potentially, it's hard to start that journey to find the significant other. But I just think that's very cool. So I just wanted to say it's awesome that Dawn did have an open mind about it, and she had to have her own little aha moment for that to click. So it's very cool.
Yeah, she and I are very lucky to have found each other for sure. We've known each other for
It's
so
awesome.
long. Like I met her in grade 8. I was 12 years old when I met Dawn.
Oh,
We started
Oh
dating
wow,
when we were 16. So like we've been together for like what, 12 years now. Yeah.
nice. That's awesome.
That is great.
But yeah,
Very
very
cool.
lucky. And she and I always talk about all sorts of things, looking forward for the future, and you know, um, yeah, I couldn't imagine trying to to date somebody outside of the covenant just because there would be like very little overlap, you know,
Yeah.
and values are obviously going to be different, and I feel like there's a certain level of understanding and maturity that we would have, particularly the younger ones of us, that is not necessarily as common with people that are our age.
Very rare,
You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like for instance, like when I was 20, like Don and I, we had our own place. I had a car. Like other guys in my age that were 20, they were all living at home. And I mean, I live with family now, but besides the point is I'm trying, and I'm not, everybody has different measures of success. But basically what I'm saying is that I was kind of like ahead with having done things compared to other guys that I was friends with. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
not to say that I was like the only exception. Like I knew dudes who, like one guy in particular, went around the country and opened up restaurants. Like that's pretty amazing. That takes a lot of skill and dedication and hard work and things like that. But it's like I feel like from our perspective, we're kind of uniquely situated often.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the growing of it all, I think, is very. It's like because there's us, and then there's other people that have learned about Yahweh, and I mean, in their 20s, and now they're 60 or 70, or and I know it'd be interesting to be like, how was it when you were that young? Because for us too, it's like my first relationship, right? I mean, I would just cry at night because she's Christian, and like she's not gonna know, and that never really kind of leaves you. You just kind of grow, and you still kind of cry more relationships, and you have values. You like just how they have values. I mean, you have values, and then if you guys want to work together, or I'm always here, and it's more about like if you don't want to live this life, then that's it, right? So yeah, you do have to sacrifice.
I do
um
like that kind of dichotomy though, where it's kind of like you have to come over here. I'm not going to come over there.
right,
Because
yeah, and
that kind of really does describe how
yeah,
we approach it, right? Like we're not going to force anybody into it. At the same time, it's like, well, you know, you kind of already have one foot out the door if your significant other isn't interested. You know what I mean?
right.
Mhm.
And it's like a lot to it. It's like we were just having this Myrna and I were just having this conversation yesterday a little bit about like how she's religions, like they'll like, yeah, like I'll celebrate your thing and you'll celebrate my thing, and for this it's like no, it's not religion. That's why. If it were like that, we'd have to ask. That's not right. And so it is. It's like, and I like kind of saying it's not fair because life is not fair. That's right. Life is not fair. Um, and for her and I, it's more of, her navigating. Like I'm kind of here, like, okay, if you stay here with me, great. If it's too much for you, you always have that choice to leave. And so that makes you have to have this kind of like preparation of like, okay, you might leave one day, because like they're thinking also about the future, and I'm not. I am, and I'm not. I'm thinking about the future with Yah and the covenant and the 1,000 years and the next 7 years, but I'm not thinking about, and when we're 40, we're gonna have a family. Like it's not gonna be the same
Yeah,
way.
it's
It's like
not in the same
Yeah.
scope, right? Like that
exactly
kind of makes me think like when I talk to people or my friends or family or whatever, and they're like, "Oh yeah, 15 years from now, this is gonna be," like I'm already like checked
Yep.
out of the conversation. I'm like, I'm sorry, but
That's
like
like
it's just
at work.
fantasy
Oh,
land at this point, and I like fantasy land. I mean, who doesn't,
yeah.
right? Everybody loves a good
yeah.
story. But it's just at the same time, it's just like I can't invest in this story in particular.
Hmm. Yeah. I get emails at work all the time. You should really start considering contributing to your 401k. I'm like, everyone that I work with, not that I have much dialogue with, many of them, but they're like they can't believe they're like, you don't have a 401k. What are you gonna do in 30 years? I'm like, I'm not worried about it. Don't.
I'm having
I
in conversation. My one supervisor, he's like, "You don't have RRSPs? That's what we have here.
okay.
RRSPs." They're like, "You don't do RRSPs, man. The company will match like 10%." And then like, I don't know, he's giving me like all this financial advice, and like maybe he's right. He's like, "You can draw against your RRSPs, and it's like taxable income and whatever." And I'm like,
Yep.
I'd just rather have it now. I don't need to
Right.
save it for retirement.
Don't need it then. Yeah. But that's another little small aspect and sometimes it's just that little thing where it's like, okay, a 401k, long-term planning, things like that. All of our long-term planning is completely different than 99.9% of the world. So it's like, yeah, of course we're going to be looked at differently or strangely or, whatever adjective you want to describe it as. But, I think it's comforting knowing like, hey, I don't need to have 50,000 in the bank or whatever to retire happily. And it's, we got a pretty good future ahead of us. So
Yeah, it's
we can
actually
take that to the bank.
that's the thing too. Is like I know a lot of people are worried, but it's like this is the most freeing thing ever.
Yeah, like
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like you're
yeah,
we're like a lot of people are afraid of what's gonna happen. A lot of people are concerned, like, am I gonna be part of the harvest? Am I gonna be left behind? And it's like, does it really matter if you all kind of have a ticket to the same place anyway? Does it matter how you get
Right.
there? Some people are flying on a jet. Some people are taking the bus.
right.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I just heard it. Like it's interesting because it's like you think you're on this side and you're just like, oh, wow, we have a privilege in, I mean, the best way. But then you're like, oh, well, you have a privilege and you're not, you don't gotta worry and or you just don't know what's going on. Um, and that because it's literally it's mental, right? And that's
Hmm.
it's not just like that doesn't exist. And Marin, I think like yesterday or 2 days ago, she's like, you have that privilege of knowing. And she's like she has her parents still that are wanting her to go to school and do this and that, and so it's I try and be like, dang, like I was there too. Like I have been there my whole life. Like I've been alone. Like that's how it would seem like. You're not, but you are in this mental, like you're grasping it, right? And they don't have that. Like like these people, a lot of people don't have that. And then she said that to me the other day, and I was like, wow, like how the tables have turned a little bit. Like I mean a lot of it, because I didn't even think of it in the sense of, you know, I mean I've had a mom for a while now, so I'm not, I'm on my own and or whatever, and she still has these obligations and these responsibilities, and it's very that's gonna be a whole other thing too. It's very interesting that I'm like, dang, like yeah, and then here I am like, do you know what's happening right now? Like, which is so hard to say to someone that you love and that you're like, like it's going down right now. Like, I'm telling her, I'm like, Trump just said that he's gonna run for prime minister of Israel. She's like, that's a fetch. And I was like, no, he said it. Like, it's there. You know what I mean? And you just like, you're just like, all you can do is kind of feed a seed, and then it either grows or it doesn't.
Hmm.
And, um, and, and that's what it is about, like growing up and learning and becoming your own human, because your family is still there, right? And the whole thing of walking away and like, hey, mom, I love you and I understand that you love me and you want me to go to school and all this stuff. But it's my time, right? So
Hmm.
we had to do that, and we have to do that for so many things, and you don't even think about it on the other hand too while they're learning in this world, right? Like Russell, I'm learning oh my god, it's so great. It's I'm able to listen to him and learn from him because he was kind of in the same boat as Marin. They're a lot alike in ways, and then he, was like started to read, and it's very eye opening because you kind
So I don't know. I guess I'll start at the beginning. It was a Wednesday. No, I'm just kidding. Let's see. So I think, so I'm originally from New York. I was born in the Bronx, in South Bronx, Albert Einstein Hospital, and then I grew up in Westchester, like in Bronxville. Um, and we moved here. So it was me and my sister, my mom and my dad. My dad was in the NYPD, and my mom worked in like the medical field. Um, and honestly, like I loved my life in New York. I kind of, my heart, I wish we never moved because it was great. I loved it there. And even when I moved here in like 2001 on my birthday, which was July 31st, I was like, where are we going? I remember I got home from wherever I was and my bed was gone and like all these toys were like being taken away. And I really didn't have any concept of what was going on. I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're playing a game or something. And then we just moved to Florida. Um, and I don't know if it's just like a New York mentality, but when I was a kid, I didn't really have a concept of geography. I thought the US was just a big extension of New York. And I thought we were just going to this weird, like, tropical side of New York that I've never been to before. And so I was like, okay. So we came here and then I've been here ever since. And I've since like visited occasionally. Yeah, so now it's just me, my mom, my sister. My parents divorced, thankfully, a long time ago. My dad's a piece of work, and not in the picture, thankfully. Um, I always joke and I use humor a lot as coping mechanisms, but I used to joke that because my dad was like horrible, like he was verbally abusive, physically abusive, emotionally. So I was like, we were just a couple months away from him being not deployed, but like because his entire unit died in 9/11, and if he would have stayed, he would have gone. So I was like, it's like if only we would have stayed, I would probably not have to deal with him anymore. But it's just a joke. But yeah, so we moved here. I went to school. I was just always the kid that never fit in. Like I just wasn't enough of something for anyone. So I was alone a lot of my life. I didn't really have any friends. Not really. I didn't have any friends. I didn't go to birthday parties. I didn't do anything. If I did go to parties, actually, it was like a ploy to make fun of me or something like that. It's like typical, like coming of age movie where a kid get picked on. It's like what happened to me. So it wasn't actually until college and high school that I started to actually make friends. So like all those experiences that kids have when they're younger, I had from like 17 to like now. So it was a little weird. And my mom was religious. She was a Christian. She was like an elder in the church and all these things. And even as a child, I was just never about it. I was somehow very intelligent when I was a child. Like my mom said, I was talking at 8 months. So I would always ask questions. Like when we were in Sunday school in New York, I was like, what does this mean? Like, why is that a thing? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And they'd be like, he's asking questions and we just need him to stop. And so, yeah. So there was that. And I have always been inquisitive and curious and not afraid to poke my nose where it doesn't belong. And I always love to ask questions. And it got me into a lot of trouble as a kid, specifically in religion. Well, it was just the same things that you guys have said, like, you gotta have faith, or some people said I was possessed and I needed to have an exorcism because there was like a demon of pride, and I thought that I knew everything, and I was like, no, I'm asking because I don't know. So it's like, so yeah, so kind of fast forwarding over all of that. When I remember, I don't know when it was, but it was shortly before we were introduced to, Yahowah and everything like that. Um, there was a day where I was just kind of fed up with everything regarding like a higher being or a higher power or God or Jesus or whatever. And I remember it's not far from here. It's like maybe half a mile from my house. There's like a park, and you can kind of like walk a trail, and there's like a bunch of gardens and greenery there. and there's also a cemetery next door, and I don't know why, but I went into the cemetery and I was just like crying, and I just ran there. And I think I was just kind of fed up with my life at that point, and I was just like, whatever God or deity was out there, I just was like screaming. I was like, I renounced every single one. So I was just thinking of like every possible deity, and I was like, I don't care if I'm going to hell. Like if I am, like it's such a much better place than having to deal with whatever heaven is like with whoever is out there. And so I remember I told that to my friends, and they're like, "Oh my God, you should take it back." And I was like, "No, I'm doubling down. Like, if I'm going to hell, I'm gonna have an apartment and a duplex. Like, it's gonna be like, so like I was just so over it. I was so done with religion, and I was just kind of like a closet atheist for most of my life after that. And so I got super before college, while I was in high school, I got super into like, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, like basically every like sort of atheistic um, philosopher or like neuroscientist or something like that, and just learned about science and history and things like that because it intrigued me, and I wanted to learn like objective truths versus like stupid spiritual mumbo jumbo that I just didn't care about. And so in 2014, my mom came to me one day, and we were already in church. So we had bounced around a little bit. So we started out in one church, then we got excommunicated because my mom divorced my father, which was against the Bible and against God. So they kicked her out. And she also found out stuff that they were doing with the money. And then there was a whole bunch of stuff with that. And then we went to another church, which was like messianic and like Judaic. So it was like half Jewish, half Christian. So we were doing like a Seder, and we were doing like Passover and all these things. And it was like so ridiculous. I just like the pageantry of all this was so ridiculous. I never loved it. The people there were all like these sheltered, repressed teenagers that I couldn't stand. It's like whenever I would talk about something from the outside world, they're like, "Oh my gosh," like treat it like it was like a shiny new thing, and I just was like, "Get me out of here, please." And so, but I had no choice because my mom was like I was like, a minor, and I couldn't emancipate myself. My mom wasn't abusing me or anything. So, I was just so tired of that life. And in 2014, while I was still in high school, I was 17, my mom kind of came to me, and she had kind of been uh, dealing with the things that I was, but just not as overtly as I was. And she was like, "Hey, so my cousin-in-law, Willie, he was like part of the um, Shattering Myths vlog. He would always go on with like Craig and talk to him, and I think they called him like Willie the Elevator Man. Like he was a long-standing part of that, and he used to be Covenant. He's not anymore. Um, but he introduced us to all this, stuff about Yahowah and the Covenant and all these things, and I was like, I mean, this is cool, but like, does this mean we stop going to church? And my mom was like, yeah. And I was like, cool, awesome, like great. Now we don't go to church anymore. And I remember like I was literally crying. I was like, thank you, like this is so awesome. And she was like, you should learn about all this. And I was like, maybe. And like I kind of like did a little, but then I just kind of let it go. And I was just happy to not be involved with religion anymore. Because it was just always so ever present, and I was so happy to just finally be out of it. And it wasn't until maybe a couple years later that I was like, okay, let me start like, and I say years, maybe like 2 or 3 years like later, I was starting to actually do some reading and digging. And I think just a couple pages into Intro to God, I was just kind of like mind blown already. Because I felt like everything that I was feeling was already wrong, but I had doubled down so hard, I just didn't care. And so I was like, "Oh, I'm going to hell. Oh, hell's not real. Okay. I'm this thing, Jesus. Oh, Jesus wasn't real. Okay." So I was like, what are all these things?" And so then I remember I was just learning all these things, and I would tell my friends about it, and they didn't really know what to do with it, so they just kind of like in one ear and out the other. But two of my friends, one of whom is now one of my best friends and is now also Covenant, she, I remember we met at Starbucks, and I was like, I have something to tell you. Like, I learned all these things. It was so crazy. She was like, what is it? And I kind of unleashed like everything on her that like, a normal person like wouldn't understand like all these things. And so I remember she started like she turned white. Firstly, like didn't, or she was like, but how can this be like it, how did you know all this? And I was like, well, I mean, the information's out there, but there's this guy named Craig, and there's all this stuff and like Hebrew and whatever. And she was like, this is a lot, and she got like physically ill, and like it was really bad, so I had to stop talking to her about it because it was just making her really anxious. And so I just kept doing my thing and reading and studying, and then I started going to college. I was a music major, so I studied music and jazz and musical theater and opera. I initially thought when I started doing school, it was going to be more like pop music, and it was not. And I was not happy about that. So I stuck with it right up until I was like one credit away from graduating, and then I changed my major because I got bored. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to school to do something that like intellectually stimulates me. And so I changed my major to philosophy, and that kind of unlocked something in me. And I just started at that point. I think I also kind of put like all the Torah and like Yahowah stuff on hold, and I wanted to kind of see everything that was out there. So I studied world religions, anthropology, cultural anthropology, world history, Greek and Roman, ancient, like everything. Like I was doing it for years. And so when I was doing all that, I was just kind of like I was still kind of taking some music classes here and there, and so they had these like big sort of like whiteboards and chalkboards, and I would stay in school after hours and make these Venn diagrams of all these different gods. And I would work out like the mind body duality problems, and like the God problem of how can God be evil, good, and loving, and blah blah blah, and like kind of like uh what's the word, like cross out the possibility of which one would exist and which one wasn't. And so I would kind of like narrow it down, and eventually, and I would include Yahweh in there because I knew little things about his nature and characteristics. And I was like, I would always come back to him, and I was like, he seems to be the only like deity that kind of makes sense and fits into like objective reality versus all these other things with these fantastical claims and mythologies and things like that, that we know the world didn't come from a spider or from, the genitals of a random god or whatever. And so I was like, okay, so this lines up objectively. I don't have any issues with it. Um, so I started kind of getting more serious about it. And then the philosophy kind of just really at that point started to help me understand things like how to, I think correctly. Like I didn't really understand, how to explain something in extreme detail, or, how metaphysics works when it comes to like, abstract things like love or happiness or joy. And it really helped me to get that framework to understand, I think, Torah a little bit more. Um, so we would also have these things called Socrates cafes that my professor, it was like so amazing. I got really lucky in the school department because I think a lot of the regular school experience for people our age is just kind of like, oh, they're infecting the minds of the youth with like leftist ideology or whatever. And thankfully, I didn't have that. My professor was very objective. So whenever he gave his opinion, he had this orange hat, and he would call it the orange hat of opinion, and he'd put it on so that we know if it was something that was he was saying, or it wasn't necessarily true. It was more of like a guide or something. And when you take it off, it was always like by the book. This is how it is. Like regardless of if you like it or not, it's always true. And so I always, very much appreciated that from him, and I always use a lot of the things that he's taught me in relation to learning things about Torah. And so the one thing I always wondered is if he was religious or not, because he never told us anything about his personal convictions, but um, he kind of helped us like kind of lay out our own convictions, or in my particular case, things about Torah and Yahweh and things like that, and kind of deconstruct and be like, okay, why do you believe this? If you do believe it, how do you know it's true? And how do we know those things are true and things like that? And it really helped me kind of understand that I'm not just believing these things. It's like I know them because I have evidence and I have facts and I have these things from the anthropology that I learned and the history and the Greek and Roman and the Hebrew that I've been learning in school. And it kind of, I think all of that prepped me for understanding and getting to know Yahweh, which was really great. And so Now, kind of fast forwarding to 2026, 12 years, like I had all this time to just kind of like, I guess, marinate in all of it. And I'm learning like all this stuff like every single day. And my friend, after like, 11 years later of her little anxiety attack that she had at Starbucks, we were talking at a restaurant like not even a year and a half ago. And I was like, hey, so do you remember the stuff I was telling you about? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, so I may not be here in like a year. And so I kind of prepared her for that. She had another breakdown and she got really depressed for like months. Like she thought I ruined her life. And I was like, her name's Ashley. I was like, Ash, like, come on. I'm not doing this to hurt you. Like, this is all just like stuff that I've learned. And honestly, I don't think you'd be reacting this way if you didn't think some of it was true. And she was like, yeah, you're right. And so then I was like, just take some time, like, learn about some of this stuff. And if you have questions, just like let me know. And so, and I was like, and I love you and everything, but just because it's me, like your best friend telling you these things, I want you to treat me like I'm a stranger. Like I could be crazy. Like you don't know. I could be like leading you into a cult. Like you should question this stuff. And so then she did, and she did her own research, and she eventually was like, you know what, I think this is all true. Like I haven't found anything. You've answered all my questions. Everything on the website that she's read, like just all lined up for her, and now she's a member of the covenant as well. So it's nice to have her here because sometimes like we'll just be out and looking at people that we used to know in high school and things that we used to do or people we used to interact with, and just like I can't believe like that's where we were, or people or whatever, just ways we used to think or things like that. And so yeah, I don't know. I've just always been like an evidence type person. Like if I don't see it, smell it, hear it, touch it, like I don't pay it any mind. And so that's why with Yahweh, like I looked up all these things with like, the Mesha tablets and the things in museums that are hanging there that have like that one little fragment of something that proves something in Torah, just like, it all hinging on those little things. Like if it weren't for those, I don't think I would be here today. And thankfully, all the I think the most important pieces of evidence haven't been destroyed or decayed. So we at least have those things for people like me that need that like tangible, evidence to prove his existence. Because I've always been had a problem with the people in religion who was just always like, I feel things or I hear a voice or I see things at night or I have visions. And I'm like, why have these things never happened to me? Like I've tried, like I was always what I assumed was a good person, and I never did anything bad. I was a very good kid. I was actually the black sheep in my family. Like all of my cousins had, you know, children before the age of 25, and some of them like lost their jobs and all these things, and they always made me feel bad for being the normal one and like being educated and all this stuff, and they would try to find ways to make me, seem like a villain somehow. It was just so stupid, but and they also think I'm in a cult, like to this day. But I stopped trying to convince people, and I've never really been. I do a lot. To a lot of people, family and relationships are like a huge thing, but I've always been very solitary since I was a kid. So, and as you can tell by my room, I'm not very sentimental. Like I don't like pictures and like keepsakes. I'm very like, if Yahweh took me, I'm ready. Like I'll burn all my things. Like I'm ready to go. Like I'm very nomadic. Like I'm not very like locked into a place like anything like that. So when it comes to people, I'm the same way. So it's like if I'm not going to try to convince you of this. Like you have what you need. I'm here for answers to your questions. But if not, then it was nice knowing you. It was nice talking. If I don't see you, cool. But I've just always been that kind of way, and it offends some people. But I'm like, I'm not here to babysit you. I have to take care of myself. Like on top of all this Yahweh stuff, it's like I'm still 20 something. I have bills. I have a job. Like I have my family, like my mom, my sister. So um, but yeah, I feel like I'm leaving out a lot of stuff. Oh, also my career. So it's a little bit weird with my music career. I didn't start it till about like 5 years ago professionally, and I before that it was just kind of a hobby. Like I was just putting music out, and um, in 2019, I put out my first EP, and it was just kind of like my response to learning everything that I did about Yahowah and everything like that. And it was just, I was like, what can I do to be as blasphemous as possible, but in a way that's like marketable and will make me money? And so I made like a 5 song EP kind of about my religion experience and kind of like getting away from that and also just kind of like making fun of it, and it did really well. And I started going from there. And in 2013, I did a stupid video of me singing in my bathroom, and it went viral, and it got like over 50 million views. And I got contacted by all these people, and my manager was out of the country at the time, so it was just really bad timing. And I was like, hey, I'm getting all this attention and we don't have anything lined up. I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do. And she goes, well, I'm in Brazil, so like I don't know. And my phone broke because it was getting like it went from like 15 notifications to 100,000 in like 5 minutes, and I was freaking out. And so then it turned into a matter of, okay, I can't talk about certain things because of privacy. I was getting death threats for talking down about religion. And then I was like, I can't post. I was on vacation in Colombia. I had to post where I was 2 days after so that people didn't follow me or know where I was so I could not get killed or whatever. And so I had to be more careful about how I talked about these things about Yahweh. And like, I'm very what's the word? Overt about how much I hate religion. Like if somebody has a conversation with me, I'm just like, F that. Like I hate religion. It's trash, like blah blah blah. So I had to be very careful about how I spoke because, if I show my house in the background in one of my stories on Instagram, someone will find it, dox me, or come here, or God forbid, like try to kill me and my family. So yeah, I didn't want that to happen. It was like a weird thing in my life. And so after that though, even though I'm still doing that now, and I'm kind of slowing down a little bit just because I want to spend the last, now year and a little couple months just kind of, hunkering down on Torah and just spending time reading and learning. I've changed sort of my kind of goal. Like now I'm just kind of doing it for fun versus like for like a life career. Like I'm not going to tour. I have no plans to do crazy things anymore. So it's kind of also just affected that, and just I've been able to slow down and stuff like that. So I think I've covered everything. I feel like I skipped a bunch of stuff, but that's essentially where my story and kind of how I ended up here.
No, that's awesome, David.
Wow,
Great
what a
story.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. I was like, the last part, I'm just a little like, whoa, because we all have dream. I mean, I've also had that dream of like, I'm gonna be a musician, and I'm gonna tell everybody about I'm like, and you just, well, he's not popular, so that's wow. Like
Yeah,
you
it's crazy.
first-handed of when you hate something that's people have faith in,
Yeah.
like, well, why does someone hate it? Why? Like, that's the question, right? I'm like, wow.
Yeah. And it's funny too, is I find that a lot of people who also maybe do hate religion, like you said, they'll usually just kind of cling to something else, like politics. It's like they just replace that one thing with something else. So I'm like, yeah, you may not be religious, but you're so obsessed with like these political things, and usually when you boil it down and you kind of get to the why, it's like not even a good reason. It's like, oh, because my parents were, or because all my friends are, and like blah blah blah. And I would do that. I do that a lot to my friends because like the philosopher in me, they're just kind of like they ask me questions and I'm like, okay, let's break this down with the Socratic method. Like, let's ask the why and like trying to figure it out. Because if you keep asking why enough, you get to understand like the core behind something. And so they'd be like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's because I'm afraid of what everyone's going to think of me. Or I'm doing this because no one else is, everyone else is doing it, and I'm afraid of doing what I want to do because it's not what everyone else is doing. And I'm like, if you just, get out of that and just stop caring and just get out of the noise, which is why obviously Yahweh says to separate ourselves and set ourselves apart and do all these things, because within that in that vacuum, it's so hard to know what's right or what's true or what's objective because you have all these people saying, oh, well, whatever you feel, that's what's right. Well, a lot of people feel that touching kids is right. A lot of people feel that sleeping with dead bodies is right. We know that if we, on a, maybe a a scientific level, that's not right. Also morally, maybe. So it's like it's just people just I think there's the herd mentality of things and the social uh, factors and cultural things and sometimes mental like we don't know how people process things and where they are psychologically like it's just so many factors and um yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but
That's good. Philosophically, David, do you find that there is a certain kind of idea that you find has actually helped position you in a way that has helped with your growth and understanding of the Torah? And like for example, would be personally, I found some of the Stoic ideas pretty useful. You know what I mean? Like you,
mhm.
especially like with what we're talking about in the time that we live in. Um, like life is a river, and you can't hold on to everything. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
think that's something that we can all kind of relate to. For instance, you know what I mean? Is there something like that that particularly sticks out to you?
Yeah, I do love Stoicism. That's like one of my favorite branches of philosophy. My friends make fun of me because it just sounds like nihilism, and I'm just like, you're just so like depressed and
It's
sad
like
all the time.
reverse nihilism though, because it's about like appreciating what you actually have, because you can't necessarily keep it forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but to everyone else, it just sounds depressing and like negative. Like it's just whatever. But I don't know. It's just kind of there's just like a lot. Like metaphysics in particular was like the biggest thing where like being responsible for yourself and your own actions and that the universe and forces or whatever out there doesn't actually care about you. Like there's nothing. Like there's no spirits in the rocks. There's no things in the trees, like anything like you find a dollar, it's not the universe trying to give you something. It's just happenstance, coincidence, uh probability, like and so when I see the world that way, like through that philosophical lens a little bit more, as in the past, it was a lot easier for me to be like, okay, um this is going to be a little excessive, but like for example, when my dad used to like physically hit me, I'd be like, so God is allowing this, so I'm probably either deserving of it or he's testing me, and this will build endurance for something else that I'm going to do later. And then later on, I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe I actually thought that for like a second that someone out there was allowing me to go through that for a reason. And then I'm like, it, if like regardless of what the reason is, it's just like that's so evil, and like it's not something like a father would do, and it just logically doesn't make sense. And so when I realized that, you know with like existentialism, like it's just about being not necessarily a good person, but just like kind of doing what's right and being objective and correct and taking responsibility for your actions and trying to do the most, I guess, good, or whatever's most beneficial, is just stuff that I've always aligned with. And when I realized that Yahweh kind of fits that framework where it's always just about what benefits versus what doesn't, or what taking accountability for your actions versus like being ignorant and just shoving it away down in to the depths of your mind and stuff like that. So I just always find these correlations between Yahweh and something that I've learned in the past. And the funny thing is that I find is that a lot of people that I've graduated, not graduate, I didn't graduate. I was a class away and I dropped out of college. Um, but what was it? Yeah, so a lot of the people that I were going to graduate with, all they managed to somehow take the stuff that we've learned and just kind of turn it into like a new religion somehow. Like they would just be like, oh, this philosophy that I've learned is like my new lifestyle, and they would just kind of just take it and spin it into something completely other than what it was we were taught or what it's supposed to be. And I'm just like, I don't know how. I mean, I know how people do it, but it just doesn't make sense because I guess I don't know. It's just like I said, society things and just needing to be a part of something or whatever. People just find and create or construct things to make things make sense instead of looking for the answers where they might be. So, but yeah,
It's a good answer.
I got
thanks.
a quick question for you, David. when you're sharing your story, is your mom still covenant?
Yeah, I didn't touch on her a lot because she might be doing something with like Mark or uh,
Oh, okay.
but yes, she is. She's the one that introduced it to me along with my cousin-in-law. So my cousin-in-law Willie, he was covenant in the beginning, back in 2012 when it was introduced to us, but he's
Mhm.
since no longer in the covenant. Like he's got into like UFOs and aliens and um his which I've had a conversation with him the last time I went to South Florida to visit him. He was like, "So you guys still in the covenant?" We're like, "Yeah, we're still doing all these things." And he also just has issues with just things that he heard about, like, how is there no Jesus? Like, how is David the Messiah? Like, he was so messed up and blah blah blah. And I just don't think it just sat well with him. So he just kind of went into this whole thing with, well, there's stuff older than the Torah, and I was like, older doesn't mean true. That's not how it works. And he was like, but we have like the epics of Gilgamesh, and it matches with stuff like that. And I'm like, you really think that we came from those gods? Like it doesn't even make sense. Like it doesn't line up with physics or geology. Like we can verify that that's not how the world came into being. If it was so a worldwide flood, we'd still be in an ice age. Like it doesn't make sense. Like how are you still in this? So we stopped. We didn't even bother trying to convince him, and we just kind of let him be and do what he wanted. But yeah, mom has been going strong for longer than I have because I spent most of my time trying to prove Craig wrong, because I was scared that it was going to be another cult or it was going to be something else that I would have to escape. And I was like, not again. We're not doing this again. And so I just like I would go every couple weeks and just be like, okay, I learned this. See if I can disprove it. And I would try to find something that would prove it wrong, and I didn't. And I checked that off my list and be like, okay, that's fine. And I continue to do the same thing now. Still do that obviously, but not as intently as like trying to like figure him out or something like that. Now I understand and I trust him, and the family. But for a long time I was invisible to all of that. Like my mom was like, you should join the Facebook group and you should do this. And I was like, no, I'm scared. Like, what if, someone yeah, I don't know why I'm always thinking somebody's trying to kill me. Like, it's because of that stupid internet. Like, people are out. Like, I'm not even
Yeah.
joking. Like, there's always I can't talk about where I'm going. Like my friends, like you're not even that big of a celebrity. I was like, I'm not a celebrity, but it's just like even if you have a large following, people for some reason I like put you on some sort of pedestal, and they think you have all this money or they think you have all this influence, which I guess to a certain extent I do, but it's just like I don't want that. Like fame and all that stuff was never a want of mine. It just came with the territory. And so
Mhm.
I use it to my advantage when it comes to, like making like my job and stuff like that. But everything else about it was just terrible. Like if I could be invisible, I would like I thrive on being alone. Like I do not want attention. When I get on stage to perform, I literally black out. Like I don't remember half of my performances. Like it's so bad. I hate when people are staring at me. I chose the wrong career. Like it's just so bad. I just love music. So, but yeah, no, with the Covenant, it's just like it made it hard for me to want to share it. And I did want to use my platform to talk about it, but I had to think about the safety of my family, and I was like, let me just talk about it to people that I know and just go from there and whatever. So yeah.